So it is 5 o'clock. We have a quorum. Excellent. I will go ahead and call this meeting to order. Today is Monday, October 12th. This is a village board joint meeting with the Cable TV Committee. Is our first budget meeting. So with that, I will ask, is it Peggy? Candy? I haven't even looked.
Candy.
Candy. Hi, Candy. Candy for roll call, please.
Bollig. Carpenter.
Here.
Glish.
Here.
Horton.
Here.
Jacobson.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
And Stitch. I don't see him, right? Okay.
All right. Thanks, Candy.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a couple items here before we get to our budget portion of our meeting. The first item is number 3, discussion and possible action regarding the 2019 waste receiving upgrade project closeout. We recommend motion to approve change order number 1 in the amount of $688 and also approve the certificate of substantial completion for the 2019 waste receiving upgrade project. Would someone like to make that motion, please?
Jeannie, I'll make it. Randy.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thanks. All right, so a motion by Glish and a second by Horton. We have an exciting memo from Mr. Rao. Yes, thank you. Any questions for Jeff on this? All right, then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, I think this is in the packet, maybe.
The press
Yeah.
release.
Oh, yeah. So this is always exciting. So number 4, we have a press release Friday, October 30th at 2 p.m. at the Highlands, the brand new Highlands Netherwood Park. We're going to have a ribbon cutting. And thanks to Jeff for putting together this press release. I thought it was really well done. Judy says she's going to, I see Judy here. Hi, Judy. Judy's going to be there with the big scissors, right? I'm not sure what we're going to wrap ribbon around, but we could just all hold it in a giant human chain 6 feet apart. So maybe bring extra ribbon. I don't know. But that's really exciting. So so for those of you watching and unaware, we've been building a new park in the Highlands of Netherwood subdivision, and it's even drive by. There's a beautiful new competition level playing field there. A new play structure, a new pavilion, parking for 77 cars. So when or if the world ever gets back to normal and we have sporting tournaments again, that's going to be a good place to go. So yeah, so it'll Mike will notice this as a village board gathering if there's more than 2 of us there. So and Jeff has ordered good weather, right?
I sure hope so.
All right. Okay, so I have my giant binder here, probably like all of you. Okay. So we will get going on the budget if everyone's agreeable. All right. So we have the overview. This is item number 5, overview of the 2021 budget and questions, issues from board members. Item A is review of general fund revenue, pages 1 to 3, and we have a bunch of items under here. So we'll just, Mike, unless you want to do them differently, let's take them in order.
Yeah.
Item 1 is the state shared revenue is remaining relatively constant.
Jeannie, could I do the overview?
Yeah, sorry. I was gonna say, you want to go through like your PowerPoint first,
Yeah,
right?
if I could, please. Yeah. And I just wanted to, can I just mention one other thing that at the beginning or on top of the agenda tonight is all the election information that the board wanted to have on there. So, and I'll get on next Monday nights too. Yep. Thanks, Elise.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah. So at the board members, and thank you for picking up your bag of goodies that Candy put together for you.
Thank you.
Yeah. And so
Thank you. That's much appreciated.
Yes, thank you.
And so I'm in the overview section, the PowerPoint. Yep, thank you, Elise. And Candy did a really nice job of putting this on the webpage. So anyone that doesn't have this hard copy of the book can follow along easily by just the bookmark. So as the first page, and then Jeannie, if you can kind of watch people who have questions, if I don't see them, just interrupt me, please. So if I'm going through this stop and ask me questions, please. So the first couple pages, just a little introduction that this is our first meeting. The second meeting is next Monday with the library board. And then the final meeting, if we need it, would be on the 21st. And then the hearing would be November 16th. Then the next page. This is the Excel spreadsheet that Lisa always prepares, and it shows, yeah, if you maybe go to that. This shows that the staff is recommending an estimated tax increase of about $44 for the 21 budget at this point, compared to the $88 for an average house in 20. And you can see on the examples of what I'm talking about there. That second example is my house. We put the other two on there because they're showing that, if you can kind of flip to the next page at least. Oh. Thank you. Yep. You can see that the tax rate itself is actually going down 2%, which means that if your house actually stayed the same, your taxes, again, this is just for village purposes. It's not the school district, the county. This is just for village. Your taxes would actually be going down at this point. And we have one of the lowest tax rates in Dane County. I think Jeannie has mentioned this a few times when we were talking about borrowing for the library. And the rate will go up as we start to get deeper into our capital improvement plan and we start borrowing. But we need to stay over $5 for a number, $5 per thousand for a number of reasons, and we're staying above that at this point. So at this point, the average house would go up about $44. You know, again, this is preliminary, and you know, things could change as we get towards the hearing, but this is what we're proposing at this point. Any questions on that sheet at this point? Okay. On the next, on page 4, sort of skip ahead here, but yeah, the tax rate is actually decreasing from $5.41 to $5.27, and we're going to get some additional information from the state, and we have to still go through open enrollment for health insurance, and so that sometimes has impacts as we get to the public hearing date in November. On page 5, we are pretty confident, comfortable that the 21 budget will qualify for the state expenditure restraint payment, which means that the 22 budget may see a $20,000 to $30,000 increase of state revenue, which will be nice because we'll need that in 22. I think 22 is going to be a challenging year because of COVID and the slowdown in the economy. So, and you may see, if you had a chance to look at the general fund, that we're showing a deficit of about $29,000 at the end of this year, but we'll cover that easily once we get reimbursed through the routes to recovery. That's what Candy submitted on our behalf, the $95,000, and we're pretty confident we're going to receive that. So once we get that, we should be fine at the end of 2020. Page 6. When Lisa and I were preparing the budget, we actually had a pretty good budget established, and then we ran the property tax cap that we have to comply with the state, and we were $122,000 over the cap. So we had to go back to department heads and ask for some assistance, and they were, as always, very helpful. And we made some necessary adjustments, and so the budget that we presented tonight is under the cap by $4. On page 7, we're showing a little bit of increase in share revenue. The main thing that we got a great surprise is the state highway aid. Because we're doing so many road projects, our highway aid is still going up. I will tell you that the League of Wisconsin is still telling people to be cautious about the state going back into session after the first of the year and potentially doing the emergency repair budget, a bill to repair the budget. And, you know, could they come back and take some of this money away from us? And we'll talk about that when we start talking about the contingency fund in the budget. We're trying to position the budget so that they do something like that, we'll be able to get through it next year. So, but at this point, we're getting a nice increase in highway aid. So on page 8, some of the main reasons why the levy is going up. Initially, I will tell the board that we had a 2% across the board wage adjustment, and that's the first thing we reduced when we were so far over the cap. We went down to 1%. I think it's going to be very consistent with other communities. We're hearing that other communities are actually giving out 0, so 1% in this environment will probably be a pretty good raise next year for people, unfortunately. The library is going up about $27,000. The Public Works Department is going about $72,000, and that's mainly due to retirement of 3 individuals, and we're having to pay out their accrued vacation. Some of that's being offset by the starting dates and lower rates for new public work employees, but it is something that we're having to deal with in the budget, including the payout for in the executive budget as well for accrued vacation payout. On page 9, the fire district's going up about $10,000, and at this point, the village is about 64.4% of the district. We grow a little bit bigger our share of the district every year. At this point, we are showing that the police department will be fully staffed as of 1/1/21. We're hoping that Jenny reaches that goal. So that's having some impact on the budget. We did budget $20,000 for the implicit bias training that we promised to do by September of next year. So we'll talk about that tonight as well. The election budget's going down because we only have 2 elections next year. So that's actually helping the budget a little bit. On page 10, we got a little bit of a surprise. We had one of our higher health insurance premium increases in a long time, 8%. So that was not a nice surprise we got, but we were able to work around that. Debt service is increasing, but this 21 budget will be the last year that the budget will use fire impact fees because the debt will be paid off for the building that was built 20 years ago, which is amazing. The Gorman incentive pay, this is when Gary Gorman bought the red brick schoolhouse, and we were giving him incentive back. We now have reached the point where we were committed to pay that incentive back, and now we're able to use about $43,000 of increment that we'd be giving back to him actually towards the TID 3 debt service, which helped lower the levy overall, which is nice. A nice point here. And we sort of talked about that when we were talking about borrowing for the library. We knew this was going to happen, so it was good that we finally were able to apply some of that money towards debt service. The next 3 bullet points, we put them in order because I think when people are asking, can you just go back one slide? Thank you, Elise. When people are asking, is the village spending money on streets? So the first item is we're going to borrow $640,000 for street maintenance for 21 and 22. On the next page in TID 5, we're proposing to borrow $1.5 million for the reconstruction of North Main Street, which will be a joint project with Dane County. And then we're also going to borrow $500,000 to improve the intersection of Janesville Street and Perry Parkway. So that's some significant money that we're continuing to borrow for our street maintenance and programs in the village. On page 12 are just some of the highlights of the equipment we're buying. We're doing a little bit of different budgeting this year for the village hall and the post office. Every year we seem to have something significant happen in these 2 old buildings, and we go searching around looking for money and fund balances. This year, next year, Lisa and I are proposing to actually borrow some money. Like the post office most likely going to need some roof repair, and we're going to borrow for that, and we'll talk about that when we look at our at Fund 14 later on. As the rotation goes, this next year is the year we would buy 2 department squads. We are proposing to resurface the tennis courts. I think we did that 5 years ago, I believe. So it's time to do it again. Pardon, Jeff?
2015, I believe.
15, yeah.
14, 15, yeah.
And then we're proposing to buy a truck in the Public Works Department, and then also replace the wood chipper that we use a lot. Those are some of the major equipment purchases. And then as far as the room tax fund, the 21 budget shows the room tax collection, and we have to show a transfer out to the established tourism commission. By state law, the village may only keep 30% of the room tax, and 70% of it has to get transferred to the commission. And once COVID is behind us, you know, the commission will be doing a lot more work, but we have not been meeting because there just hasn't been a need to do that at this point. Of the 30% that we collect, we propose transferring about 8,000 of that into Fund 201, which is a sick leave fund, and then 10,000 into general fund to help cover the village planner's time. And that those two things help to, when we were trying to get underneath the property tax cap, those items helped us to do that. On page 14, we continue to provide a cash payment to the youth center of $12,000, same as 2020. We are still proposing to hopefully repair the bike trail next year. And then we also propose to do the JC Park West renovations as well. Any questions on all that? Any of that?
Bollig would have a couple of questions.
Sure.
On the bike trail, we aren't going to repair that until it's above sea level, right?
It would, that money would allow us to purchase an easement from the family, Jerry.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're preparing to get it above sea level.
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Get the lake down,
What was Jeff saying?
or draw the lake down.
Yeah.
Or draw the lake down?
Yep.
Actually, that's, I don't know if the board had a chance to read the Lake Barney story that was in this past Observer. That was actually well written by the reporter. And if you want, I'm happy to share it with you. Or actually, it's still online if you want to read it.
Okay.
But actually, one of the options is to actually reduce the water level so that the water wouldn't be off the trail. Except Jeff and I have talked about it, that the trail would need to be probably replaced or repaired because it's been underwater for 3 years or 4 years, something like that. Yeah. So the money's in the budget to hopefully do the trail some way next year. It's getting, I don't know if you've been out there, it's been getting used a lot because of people wanting to be outside this year. Yeah.
And then is the replacement of the flatbed truck, is that a replacement for an existing
Yeah, we
flatbed truck,
operate,
or?
I think we operate 3, if not 4 flatbed trucks. We replaced 2 of them 2 years ago. Our flatbed trucks, we'll talk about it under our capital budget, but yeah, our flatbed trucks get used every day to handle everything. So they're kind of our workhorses.
Yeah.
Don't doubt it, yeah.
Yep.
And the wood chipper, is that another wood chipper? So I thought we had 2.
We
And
do
so
it. It's the one we would be. It's getting near the end of its life, and we would trade it in. You'll see under the capital budget, we get a good trade in, and replace that with a new one. That's
all right.
Yeah,
Okay.
Jerry, if you look on page 75 of the budget,
Okay.
it actually, we put a footnote that the flatbed truck replaces a truck that was purchased in 2003.
Okay.
The wood chipper is replacing this one was purchased in 2005.
All right. Oh, even it has a nice picture here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's huge.
wood chipper.
Looks big.
Fargo reference.
I knew you to say
Oh, what?
that. I needed to say that.
A Fargo the movie reference.
Oh, Fargo. Okay. Yeah.
Your buddy in the wood chipper.
Yeah. The log they're rolling in there looks about as big as a human. So,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and yeah, we're continuing to use both of our wood chippers every month during the growing season.
Very good.
All right, any other questions for Mike on the overview?
Oh, Lisa's got.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Lisa.
I don't really have a question. As we get going into the budget, I just want to let everybody know on the board that I don't know how closely you were looking at the budget, but when you're looking at the projected actual versus the 2020 projected actual versus the 2020 current year actual. Some of the projected actuals are under that, but we've gone through and we've updated the numbers a couple of times. But because of the daily activity that we have on in expenditures and revenues coming in, that numbers can changing all the time. But before we get to the public hearing, those will all be updated so that none of them are skewed like that. So I just wanted to let everybody know.
Excellent. Thank you, Lisa. All right, so then,
I think Jen had a question.
oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to clarify, Mike, you had mentioned the adding into the budget the implicit bias training, and I just wanted to clarify that that wasn't just for the police department, but as many of the village employees as possible. Is that, I believe that was the intention. Okay.
You know what, it's funny you asked that, because that's why I purposely put on page 4 of the agenda under K, that's the wording right from the resolution. So it says for all village employees, including the police department. Yeah. And actually, I should say, and village board members, sorry. Yeah. And so, you know, that's a number. I'm hoping that that's enough to cover that. I know that the trainers are in high demand, so we'll see. Hopefully we can that'll be enough to cover that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions? All right. So then under number 5, we have some information in there that Mike talked about the state shared revenue. Thanks for that historic perspective of the state highway aids increasing in 2021. So you see on there that they've increased almost every year except for a couple of years in 2016 and 2017. So that's a big part of our budget.
Yeah.
Item 3, the building permits were reduced by 10,000. Number 4.
Can we?
Yes.
Mike, can you explain that? What is reduced by 10,000?
The building permits?
Yeah.
We're just feeling that we're not going to have as many permits issued in 21 for new.
Okay, so we're just down. That's what.
Yeah, I mean that we're being somewhat conservative.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Number 4, a revenue from the village planners chargeback to developers is decreasing $12,500. This is being offset by a $10,000 transfer in of room tax into the general fund. And I'm assuming that's just because we're expecting things to slow down, right, Mike?
Yeah, and I will tell you that I think Lisa would agree with me. It's just going to take a couple years to figure out how to budget for the planner. And when we get to Lisa's budget, we have that spreadsheet and how to allocate the hours and everything. So this will take a couple years to tweak the revenue. And then some years will be unusual. If we get somebody who decides to annex property, we'll blow this number out of the water that year. So, but yeah, this is a way to sort of offset. We brought the room tax in to offset the decrease.
Okay. And then item 5, from 2019 to 2021, revenue from investments is projected to decrease approximately $35,000, which is a bummer.
And that's a bummer because that's the reflection of the bank changing the agreement, and we've been through that. And so we're hoping we're accurate on that. May I mention one other thing? If you want to turn to page 3 of the actual budget, at the board, and I just wanted to mention about at the bottom there, to continue appropriations. And we'll talk about a little bit of this, but I wanted to make sure the board understood that what this means is that we're carrying money forward from the 2020 budget into 21 for things that we budgeted for, but what we didn't spend it on. For example, the Lerner Park Master Plan, we had actually had money in I think the last 2 budgets, and we are going to do that master plan in 21. So we carried that forward. We didn't do the safety training, and so that's why we're carrying the $2,140 forward. The key benefits, that's for our Section 125 plan, and that's something we actually only have to pay every other year. So we sort of over budgeted in 20, so we're carrying it into 21. $11,000 is what we paid the school district to run the summer rec program. And obviously we didn't do this this past summer, so we're carrying that forward. And that $20,000 for legal fees, that's a misprint. What that is, that's $20,000 that we're carrying that we will carry forward from once we get paid by the state for the extra COVID-19 cleaning that we're having to do in the buildings. So, so Lisa and I will bring forward an adopting resolution to carry all this money forward into 21, but I just want to make sure you knew that was the background on that.
Okay.
Yep.
Any
Thank you.
questions from board members on anything in item number 5?
Yeah, and any questions on revenue that the board members had? Or anything on the overview again?
All right, thanks, Mike.
Sure.
All right, so item 6, this is we're considering a joint meeting with the Cable TV Committee. Do you guys want to do a call to order, or do you have folks that are here, Tom?
Yeah, I scrolled through the attendees. There's only 4, and we need 5 for an actual meeting, so it would not be a meeting of the Cable TV Committee.
Okay, no worries. We're glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. So item number 9, the Cable TV budget. We have 3 items under here. And Tom, do you want to kind of take us through these, or Mike, do you want to take us through these? I'm not sure who wants to run this part.
I can, let me just mention one thing, and then I'll let the Cable TV Committee members that are here to maybe go through their budget. I just want to make sure we put a note on here that this is now the 2nd year that the state is paying some of the franchise fee. Now they're paying 1%, so that $24,000 you see on page 32 is the state paying 1% of the franchise fee. And as I mentioned to Jeannie on Friday, we just are not seeing the big increase in franchise fees that we anticipated or expected at this point from TDS. We're not seeing that, but hopefully that's still to come.
Okay, so yeah, so board members, we are on pages 32, 33, 33A,
Yep.
and 33B in our exciting giant binder.
After special funds,
Yes.
special fund section. Yep.
Mike,
So-
I have a question.
Sure.
Do you get reports from TDS similar to the reports you get from Charter?
We do. Yeah, Lisa gets
Okay.
them in. Yep.
Okay.
I'm just saying that we just haven't seen the, when we went and had TDS come into town, we hired, Rookie and Milky to help us do that. And we were having to pull money out of fund balance out of the cable TV fund to pay Rookie and Milky to help us do that. But, we weren't that nervous about it because we thought we're going to get this influx of TDS money to pay that fund balance back. And it just hasn't happened at this point. I'm just bringing it up. I just want the board to be aware about it. I don't think it's anything to worry about, but
Okay.
it just hasn't happened at this point. So.
All right, Tom, do you want to give us some highlights and overview here?
Sure, if you could go to the funding proposal document.
So on page 33A.
Yeah, there's one more spreadsheet format.
Yeah, it should be before that, at least. Isn't it? There it is. Yep.
All right.
That's it.
Paul Zwicker joins me here as far as the presentation. Paul will jump in with any additional comments he has. As we look at this, as everybody knows, 2020 hasn't exactly been the year we all anticipated a year ago. On your far right in your document here, you have the 2020 budget, which is what we submitted last year as our funding proposal. And this year, a year later, we're looking at where are we going to be at the end of 2020. And there's a couple of really dramatic things I want to point out that's really changed. That just things didn't happen the way we expected. The first is in the revenue categories. At the top, you were there before. There we go. If you look at the sales of DVDs, you'll note that we had a considerable shortfall. We are anticipating a considerable shortfall in DVD sales. It comes up when a lot of our DVD sales come from events like high school graduation, musical performances, a lot of the elementary performances that just aren't happening this year. So that's a pretty big shortfall as far as revenue for us. The other piece was we had a pretty significant revenue shortfall, or we will have a total shortfall in our underwriting we're anticipating at this point. This is the funds that comes from all the sponsorships and where they sponsor sports programs. And we have announcements. This program is brought to you by the community bank or by Charlie's or whoever is sponsoring. At this point, with none of those kinds of events, we're not anticipating this year that we're going to have any significant revenue there at all. This would have resulted in a pretty huge revenue shortfall for us, around about a $10,000 shortfall. But we were able to participate in the payroll protection program, and we applied for and received a loan. This is currently a loan. It's a liability of the OCA Media right now, but we're anticipating that loan will be forgiven. We're meeting all the rules and the requirements. It's just a matter of timing as to when that actually will occur. But then that'll be an $18,500 revenue we didn't anticipate last year, which actually makes our revenue for the year look a little bit better than we actually expected a year ago. As you can see, when we're compared to that to the 2021, we're basically just saying our revenue is going to be about the same because we really don't know what 2021 is really going to bring yet at this point. If you could scroll down a little bit into the expense section, thank you. We also had some changes on our expenses. Probably most of it's minor things. We had some additional, we had to reconfigure our office to make it more safe for our employees to be in there. They wouldn't be immediately, we had to put up some plexiglass barriers. We had to reconfigure the whole space. Paul did a lot of that heavy lifting himself. So thank you on that one, Paul. The most noted thing comes in payroll, and that's where you would expect a fairly significant change for us. Right now, we're expecting a reduced payroll amount. That's largely because we're not using any high school staff to record any soccer games or basketball games or football games or any of those things. And they're usually a $9,000 or $10,000 annual expense for us. It's made up for a little bit by the additional hours we're having staff produce new content. So one of the difficulties we've had or experienced with this whole scenario is that since we don't have events going on in our community that we can really record, we've had to produce our own content. This would be those programs like Oregon Minute, the Oregon Life, there was one other one, Paul, I'm missing one. Focus on Oregon.
Focus on Oregon.
Yeah. And those actually take quite a bit of production time to put together. And we were talking about it the other day, an Oregon Minute, your 20 minutes of an Oregon Minute that we actually produce and put on air, it takes almost 8 hours of staff time to produce. So you go from, we used to get, we'd send a camera to say a soccer game, and we'd get, 2 hours of content for about 3 or 4 hours of production time. Now we're spending 8 hours of production time and getting 20 minutes of content. So obviously it's very expensive kind of scenario, but it's also highly desirable. Some of the comments we get back from the community have been very, very supportive, very appreciative of things like the Oregon Minute. I know a lot. I was going through when I was looking at the people who are participating in the call. About a third of the people on the call right now are actually have participated in one of those calls or those programs, and we really appreciate your support on all of that. Net comes down to that. Then we're anticipating a surplus for the remainder of the year, about $13,000. Most of that, almost, and all of that, it really is coming from the fact that we've got that payroll protection program loan that really made up for that gap that we had. So what are we going to do with the $13,000? So to be the first question I would expect Jerry to ask me. So what's going to really happen is that in 2021, while we're projecting our funding request is based on a neutral revenue anticipation, we're actually going to probably be using some of that funds to cover what we're anticipating to be a real surge in our staff activity early on, as soon as people can come out of their, they come back out and start celebrating and having events again. There's going to be a real rush of sports where they're trying to cram a football season, a basketball season, and a soccer season and all the other sports, volleyball and all of the other sports, into a 6-month period when we would have normally had that covered out through a whole year. So we actually expect some rise in those revenues, but we'll cover that with the revenue anticipated that we're going to have as a surplus from the year. Other than that, we're really looking that we're basically just asking for the same funding proposal for 2021 as we had in 2020. Just want to just make a comment that the comments we get, the feedback that we've gotten from the community, it's been very supportive. I have a TDS, so I watch actually quite a bit and frequently scroll through our channels, and our channels have a better look and a better feel, and I think more relevant contents than almost any other cable access group that's out there. And I'm just really proud of the work that Paul and all of the staff, Frank and Ashley and Dan have all been doing, and really appreciate what they've done for us. I don't know, Paul, did you want to add anything there?
Just briefly, hi. Thank you for having us today. It was Derek Westby who did all the heavy lifting, moving our office around. I got to give him credit. He's been a great addition to our staff. He's our IT guy, and I appreciate all that he's done for us. He's helped us move forward quite well. Sorry, I have an old dog hobbling around behind me. I just wanted to point out that these events that Tom mentioned that we're doing that we aren't covering, and we have since picked up coverage of more focused story type or interview type segments, it does require a lot more production. Just for example, Frank Caruso and I were out Saturday afternoon with the library, a few folks from the library doing a promo for them. And it only took about 45 minutes to record it, but I probably spent 2+ hours editing it. So each piece takes a little bit of time, and some take a lot more than others. So yes, it will, doing these small short pieces, which I think are important to our community. I hope people receive them as such. They do require more time and effort. And that boils down to hours on the timesheet. We've done 18 Oregon Minutes, which are interview shows done in collaboration with the Oregon Observer. I've just started a 2020 election campaign programming. I've got 3 of 4 candidates scheduled. I'm trying to get our 4th candidate for the District 80 office, Assembly District. Our congressional districts 2 in this area should be recorded by Wednesday, and I hope to have those up rolling throughout our programming day in the next week, so people can see what our candidates are doing, and they're unable to reach the public right now. So as Representative Pope said to me today, she was very appreciative of the effort we made to allow them to speak to the public, to speak to their constituents. That's about it. For addition to this, I mean, we've kind of switched over quite a bit to these short form videos, and they're well received. I will say this, that our Frank Caruso, who's our social media producer, has been everywhere in town. If you haven't seen him, you haven't been at an event. He sees something and he does a video on it, or he does a live Facebook on it. And I think that kind of interaction helps bring our community together. And I hope that's part of the reason that our community supports us. And that's about all I have, really. Questions, I guess, for Tom or I?
Well, Paul also provided a written report which follows, and I'm not going to go through that in any great detail. It sort of documents the things that we've done in the past and what we've been doing recently. I don't know, Mike, did you want me to discuss that last item about recommending for the equipment replacement?
I would mention it, please.
In the document, one of the things that we recommended, and I think it's the last paragraph of the document, we made a recommendation that the village begin to consider replacing the television broadcasting equipment that you have in the village hall. It is very old. It's very difficult to work with. And we actually have a difficult time getting it staffed sometimes. When you're considering or begin to think about an in-person village meetings again, we really strongly recommended that that system be replaced. And in discussion with Mike, he asked us to put forward a proposal on that. And this would be funding that would come from the television fund budget or funds, but it would be owned by the village, it'd be maintained by the village. We would provide you a recommendation on what kind of equipment to buy for that.
Yep.
It's not part of our funding proposal.
And I might add that that equipment is, would be transferable to any new facilities down the line, should you so desire to leave that wonderful basement at the village hall. It was, the equipment is pretty well established now, all in HD. We're actually outputting, I think 480p quality on some of those cameras that are probably 15, 20 or more years old. In spite of what we do, we can't upgrade what's there. We just have to replace the whole system and make it a convenient system that we can instruct several people to operate. Right now, I have one operator who can do it. I can do it with a cheat sheet in front of me, and I'm usually pretty late hitting the button and taking the camera that's focused on Jerry or whomever. But that's about it for that recommendation. We did propose about a $20,000 investment. I don't have that in front of me right now, but it would have multiple cameras and be very easy to use compared to what we do now.
Okay, thanks, Paul. So questions on the proposed cable TV budget budget?
Can I just make a comment?
Yes, please.
I think that you guys are, really a valuable asset to the community. I mean, you mentioned Frank. Frank is everywhere, and you guys are really accessible when people call. Can you come and be part of the event? You guys are always say yes, and I think you guys do tremendous work and really are an asset to our community.
Thanks, Randy. Yeah.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments at this time? Okay, so just to kind of recap how this works, because we only do this once a year. So we have a long agenda tonight with lots of items, and you'll see recommended motions to approve or consider. So just remember that whatever we approve tonight doesn't mean that it's set in stone. We have 2 more budget meetings where we can change things, move things around. The budget is not final until the very end part of this process, and then we have a public hearing, and there's all sorts of future time to change things. So don't feel like if you are voting yes for a particular item right now that it's set in stone. I know that was always confusing to me and the board in the beginning. So this is just the process and the way to go through it. So with that, I will do item B. So possible consideration of items 9A by the cable TV committee. But you guys don't have a quorum, so we'll just scratch that, okay?
Yep.
So then now we'll do possible consideration of items 9A by the village board. So if someone would like to make a motion to approve the cable TV budget at this time.
I'll move approval.
Thank you, Randy.
I'll second.
Amanda, second. Thank you. Is there further discussion at this time or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Tom, and thank you, Paul, for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, of course. All right. We'll skip item 10. Item 11. Hey, look at that. We're still on time. 5:45 p.m. Discussion of police budget. So we have items A through K in here. We're going to start with a review of the 2021 goals, the 2020 accomplishments. So that's in the goals and accomplishments tab in the binder. And then we have all sorts of things that we're going to go through. I don't know if Jenny or Mike wants to lead this one.
I think Jenny should.
Okay. Jenny, what page do you want us to go to first in the binder?
I'll cover the accomplishments goals first.
Okay.
So what you have in front of you on the screen there are 2020 goals. Some of them were set by Chief Brian Ewell, and then I came in and set a few different ones. You'll see in the red are the goals we were able to accomplish for 2020. 2 of those goals that were not accomplished in 2020 we're going to carry over into 2021, and they are to continue the property conversion into Spillman. It's a big project. And then, of course, adding the honor guard unit as well. For the 2021 goals, we're looking at is to continue improving the Emergency Operations Center. Again, complete the property conversion into Spillman, add that honor guard unit. Detective Jansen, if you guys remember, I talked to you a couple months ago about this. He's now an instructor in fair and impartial policing. So he will train our staff on that topic in 2021. I would also like to add an additional bike officer. Right now we have one on day shift and on night shift. Second shift would be a good time to add as well. We'll also continue to expand our knowledge and support mechanisms for individuals in mental health crisis. We also want to create a new scenario-based citizens police academy, and also add ICAT training, which is integrating communications assessment and tactics training for all of our OPD staff, sworn staff.
Excellent. Thank you, Chief. Questions on that overview? All right, then I guess I'll let you kind of go through your budget. So now we're going to start on pages 10 and 11 of the actual budget. And Jenny, I'll let you give us the highlights as you wish.
Yes, and for just to outline one is community education on page 10. You'll see a $3,000 increase. That is to fund the citizen scenario-based academy. On page 11, we did have a reduction in hours for Public Works, helping us out with various projects here. Outside of that, there really are no changes other than our budget does reflect being fully staffed as of January 1st, 2021. Moving on to the police building, which is also page 11. Uniforms, emergency government, crossing guards, and animal control. There really are no changes in those areas. And we next get to page 39 and 40.
That's in the special fund tab.
Yes. I just wanted to provide you guys an explanation to this. So the community policing is all donations. This typically funds Safety Day, National Night Out, safety camps. So obviously we haven't had those events because of COVID-19. We are pleased to announce though that we will have Shop with the Cop, but that is with the County Sheriff's Office. So outside of that, the Explore program, obviously that does not exist any longer. We did receive prior approval from the village board, and those donations will go towards our honor guard. The police canine fund, I'm just going to switch to that one. That one is on page 45. I just wanted to highlight that Vende, our current canine unit, is pretty close to retirement, a well-deserved retirement. So Lisa was kind enough to put a footnote in here for 2021 that we're anticipating by 2022, we will need a new canine. An estimated cost is $25,000.
So Jenny, you want to emphasize that that's not going to, the purchase of the new dog will not hit the levy. This will
Right.
be to
Yes.
this fund.
This is also donations, yep.
Yep.
The police equipment fund for pages 74. That will be obviously the purchasing the 2 squads and the emergency operations center. We're looking at just continuing to add equipment to the EOC here at the police department. Oh, and then, sorry, my paperwork in front of me here. The vehicle and equipment 2021 requests consist of obviously the 2 squads. The prices are a little increased because the body style changed. So now we have to outfit them internally with different equipment. We also will be purchasing another taser. Taser purchase program. We have to do this annually. We will purchase 1 tactical rifle. This will go into one of the new squads. A portable radio. And I know, I believe it was Jerry that had asked why these are so high. We are getting the newer models to increase that reception. And we have to make sure all the proper channels are programmed in. We also want to install a camera into the overflow evidence room. This was something that the prior chief wanted as well. It was just a matter of when we could pull it off. But because we have so much property we're storing, we need to start thinking of other ways we can store evidence. So this would be in that other area. We also want to add another handheld LiDAR radar unit. We use these on a daily basis and they see wear after a while. So we'd like to use that for replacement purposes. And then also purchasing the Axon Flex 2 camera. We want to make sure we have an additional one. We do send these in for repair often, just with the weather and the wear and tear.
All right. Questions for the chief on anything in item A through J? So Jerry, I can see your mouth moving, but I can't hear you.
Now can you can,
Yeah.
I'm unmuted now, so.
Yeah, there you go. So did you have a question? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Chief Jenny, on the evidence room, is there, so the evidence room is full. So you've had to create another area called a overflow room. Is there any way to thin out the number of items, or are you forced to just hang on to everything for a long time? I guess I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
Sure.
The amount of, I mean, you must have an awful lot of evidence.
Yes. So we always have had 2 property rooms. One is an overflow and one is our interior. Our interior is what we use the most. That's our day-to-day operations where we store things. That's also where we store any drugs we bring in and also any med drop medications. And that takes up a lot of room. We do purge as often as we can, but there's strict guidelines we have to follow per state statute. And so there's quite a bit of property that we have to hold on to for 5 years, 7 years, indefinitely. So it's a slow process. What's slowing us down even more right now is the fact that we converted to a new record management system. And now we have to get all that property into that new management system as well before we can start purging again. So right now what we're doing is, as we're bringing it into the property room, we're trying to decide if we can get rid of it, you know, as we're doing that.
Okay.
I think it'd be safe for staff inside the building. If we could at least move the med drop medications out into the overflow under a camera there. The smells and the dust that comes from those as we move them can be a little overwhelming.
Thank you.
All right. And then on the tactical rifle, is that replacing a rifle or is that just going to be an additional weapon you're going to have?
This would be adding.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on the police budget? All right, then I would entertain a motion of approval of items 11B through 11J.
I will move that.
Thank you.
Gibson, I'll second.
All right, thank you. So we have a motion by Bollig and a second by Jacobson. Further discussion at this point? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your time and work on that, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, now we are on to the senior center budget, item 12. So we have, let's see, how many items goes on to that? Okay, so we have items A through H for discussion tonight. And Rachel, I will turn it over to you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I know most of you were present when we had a joint municipal meeting with the town of Rutland and the town of Oregon a few weeks ago and saw these documents then. So I won't belabor them, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. We start out with an allocation sheet that shows just how the different sort of departments within the senior center are broken down. How much each costs, what the revenues are, and what is funded by the municipalities. And then it also shows you how under our contract with the other municipalities, how the total amount breaks down. So the Village of Oregon's portion is $290,347.75, which I believe is up about $10,000 from last year's portion, and Lisa, correct me if I'm wrong. So our budget, I believe, is an increase of about 4%. Much of that is being driven by fixed costs that we don't have much control over, things like health insurance premiums and increases in other costs like electricity or those kinds of things that always seem to inch upward. As we go forward into the particulars of the budget, so if Elise wants to move into maybe page 3, which will show us revenues, we got, our revenues changing a little bit. We expect to go up just a bit from the county. Some of our other revenue sources are going to go down. We can't, in these times, our building's not being rented out for events and things. But where we see a little bit of change in our meal site, for example, I think we're just past that meal site, is on page 54. Our meal site has had quite an increase in expense for next year. And that is because we've reallocated some of our staff time to meals, taken it out of some of the other departments. We've spent a lot of time in 2020 serving meals and a lot more staff involvement in those meals. And we don't anticipate that's going to change while the coronavirus is still as prevalent as it is. So some of our administrative time is now in the meal site. There you are, at least. And in other places, you'll see that our expenses are down some. Our adult day program has gone down somewhat because we had a staff person who retired early in 2020 at the top of the pay range, and the replacement is not at the top of the pay range. So that budget's down a little bit. Generally speaking, it's a little shift here, a little shift there, but not much different than the budget we brought to you last year. Last year, we had included another full-time employee who was never hired in 2020 because of the coronavirus impacting.
It's 6 o'clock.
We're still on time. In fact, we might be running a few minutes early. The budget for 2021 again includes the funding for a full-time administrative assistant that would start in April. So we're hoping to have the opportunity to add that staff person next year that we were unable to add this year because of all of the unforeseen circumstances that were presented to us. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about the senior center's budget. And also, I'd like to thank you for all the support that you've always provided to the center and its mission. It's appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for all your work on the budget. Are there questions for Rachel on anything in items 12A through G?
Can I just make?
Yeah, go ahead, Andy.
So, having served as a trustee on the Coalition on Aging, and Rachel, I am always so impressed with what you guys do for our seniors and how lucky our seniors are that we have this center. You go in there and there's just everything is buzzing, and I think our community is so lucky in the area surrounding to have you and your staff. It's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes. I think we're probably all in agreement on that. Thank you. All right, then at this time, I would entertain a motion to approve items 12B through 12G.
So Jeannie, I'll move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Peterson, no second.
Okay, thank you. Further discussion or questions? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your work on that tonight, Rachel.
Thank you.
All right, so now we're on to item 13. This is at the administrative section. So this is a long section. Mike, do you want me to just go through this item by item?
I could do it if you want.
Oh, hey, even better.
Give you a break.
It's all yours, buddy.
I thought you would jump for that. Yeah.
All right.
So starting on page 4 is the village boards. Let's get caught up here. Page 4 is a few more pages. There you go. Thank you. Page 4 is the village board's budget, and what Lisa and I try to do on these each section of the budget, we try to give you maybe a footnote of what what's in this each budget. So this is where the League of Wisconsin dues are paid out of, and obviously including your salary that we pay out of this. So there isn't too much change in this one. In the next, and please stop me if I'm going through this for questions, and I'll be happy to answer them. Municipal court budget is going down, but it still includes funding for the parent liaison position. I talked to Judge Cox, and we still want that position in the budget, so it's showing that position still in the budget. Legal, I think legal, we're starting to hit a point where we're thinking we've been increased in the legal budget quite a bit in the last couple of years. I think we've hit a spot maybe we're holding it somewhat constant, and overall it's going down a little bit because we're hoping that labor negotiations will be over with by next year. We actually start negotiating with the police union on Wednesday, and we're hoping that ends and we don't have that in 21. So we're decreasing slightly the labor or the negotiations or the legal budget in 21 without labor negotiations. The executive is my budget. We're showing for salary nine months for the new administrator, and then 3 months for mine, and then my vacation payout is also in this budget. And on page 6 is the clerk's budget, and then you can see I don't think Peggy's on the call tonight, but she has her her goals and accomplishments. Did a nice memo. Or any questions about that, I could put that on an agenda when she's here. But if you go into that goals and accomplishments section, that's where she has her memo to you. The next one is the election. As I mentioned during the overview, there's only 2 elections in 21. Thank God for that. It's going to be an easier year on the staff and everybody here. Next item is the computer budget. The Computer Magic is wanting to raise our fee. And I asked, we had a meeting with them. I asked them to send us a narrative, which we can share with the staff and the board. So we're waiting to get that. So at some future meeting, we'll share that with the board. Accounting, we can look at Lisa's goals and accomplishments. Again, in that tab section. Lisa, did you want to go through that a little bit with the board?
So the goals for next year, some of them are repetitive, but some of them we may have wrapped up before the end of the year, depending on how the next last couple months go. And just getting through every audit with the auditors and the staff here. We pretty much have wrapped up changing everything over from JP Morgan to State Bank of Cross Plains. There's one item that's outstanding that I'm kind of waiting on just because of other factors going on. And then next year in 2021, I will probably start to do reinvestment of additional fund balance that we have for like streets. If there's a street program that we're not going to be doing for a number of years, I can put that into a CD and hopefully generate more interest income than what we're getting with our current bank, State Bank of Cross Plains, which is the LGIP plus 0.1. LGIP for September was 0.13. So we're getting 0.23 for our money when we were getting like almost 4% earlier this year. So it's going to be tough, and I'm hoping that once the election's over, that investment in CDs, hopefully that interest rate's going to go up. Right now, I think the highest I've been offered is about 0.2%, so not very good right now. And I guess those are just some of the highlights. I don't know if anybody has any questions about anything.
Any questions for Lisa right now? All right, thanks, Lisa. All right, Mike, keep going.
Okay, I do want to mention on page 7, I'll let Elise get back there. Under professional services, we are continuing to budget to hire Ellers to help us do the financial plan, and we anticipate, yeah, right there, thank you, Elise. We anticipate actually Dave from Ellers coming in November to go through the capital improvement plan and the financial management plan with the board. That's Lisa and I are planning on doing that. Page 8 is the assessor's budget. We just basically have the contract with Accurate in the budget showing that. Village Hall, as I mentioned in the overview, we're actually now budgeting some major repair work for the Village Hall and the post office in Capital Fund 414. Page 9 is the other general government, and we had talked about that's where the training is for everyone, including the board members next year. And in that second line, it says reserve for contingency. That's the contingency line item that at one point it was down to like $15,000, and Lisa and I were very nervous about going into the budget and going into the year, excuse me, with that type of contingency. So we moved money around and got it up to $48,000. At this point, we're going to try to hold it at that. We'll see as we go through the budget if we can. But that's for unexpected expenses, including if the state would cut our revenue through a repair bill next year. So, any questions on that? Insurance, pages 9.
Corey.
Oh, sorry.
Corey has a question for you.
Yep.
I just had a question regarding the additional money for the building maintenance. How were those dollar amounts determined? Is that kind of what we've been seeing in the past, or were there repairs you were expecting.
That's what we've been seeing in the past, correct? And we borrow the money, we have the money available for 3 years. So for example, we know we're going to probably end up doing some more roof repair work on the post office, for example. And there always seems to be something happening with our heating and air conditioning in this building. So that's what we anticipate.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Insurance is on pages 9 and 10. We're still waiting for the final insurance numbers. Then pages 13 and 14 is the fire district's budget. And as I mentioned, we're about a little over 64% of the budget. And I think you've seen this information a couple times with Glenn. Any questions on that? Then page 14 is the EMS budget. That's just a pass-through amount that we get money from the state grant, which we turn over to the fire district. Page 14 is the inspection budget that we have with Safe Built. That's our building inspector company. And so when we collect a building permit fee, the arrangement we have is that it's a 75-25 split with them. Pages 23 and 24 is the recreational program. And that includes the payment to the school district, which I mentioned that we're going to carry that money forward. And then also the money for the youth center to $12,000. And then page 24, now Elise gets to talk a little bit here. These are, go back into the binder and look at her goals, right? Let's see here. Oh, yeah, thank you, Elise. Anything you want to mention on these?
Mike, can you go into the $12,000 for the youth center? And the reason I bring it up is it doesn't seem to be used right now.
Yeah, well, we budgeted. I mean, and if
okay,
in some reason they're not open, then obviously we won't make the payment.
What is that, for utilities or something like that?
I'm not sure. They use it as part of their budget.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do a quick overview of the goals and accomplishments. Thanks, Mike. So ongoing upcoming projects, depending on the next step with the comprehensive plan amendment, which you'll be seeing next week. We have potentially about 140 to 150 units of affordable housing, the Lakestone site on Janesville Street. Hopefully Habitat for Humanity will continue to move forward with their site on Janesville Street as well, up to 10 units there of affordable owner-occupied housing. And then depending on what would happen with Oregon Parks, looks like right now, some duplex development, and then to be determined on the lots behind Mulligan's and the daycare site. Completed our bike-friendly community application February 2020. We got an honorable mention and a lot of great feedback from that. So we'll be hopefully submitting next spring, see how we do. And then also we made a lot of progress on the Southeast Business Park. Was able to make contact with the Sweeney family and Tom Smith, who's their advisor. We have worked with attorney Matt Dragney to draft up sort of an initial agreement about next steps, and all of that will be coming to you later this fall to review before we share with the Sweeneys. And they're also working on a wetland delineation late this fall on that property just off 138. A lot of potential things for next year. Continue to work on our bike-friendly community efforts, including bike route signage, potentially doing some downtown wayfinding that might get bumped to 2022. Mike mentioned master planning for Lerner Park. That will kind of dovetail with some of the efforts that Jeff's been doing on Badfish Creek. We have a lot of updates to do to the zoning code, so hopefully we can work through that to-do list. Randy's been working with us on an urban forestry program, so hopefully we can get that potentially going next year. And then other projects in the TIF district, Southeast Business Park, others that, sites for redevelopment or empty buildings, depending on what happens there, work with the school district, etc. Work on our parks, JC Park,
will hopefully take a lot of my time next year. We've been spending a lot of time on the Highlands and Netherwood Park, so happy to see that come to a close, and potentially working on some planning efforts with the library and looking at the West Side Park and what municipal facilities might go out there in the future. That's all.
Any questions on that?
Bollig has a question.
Mhm.
On the Bertler property. Any indication of what might happen down there?
He's still working with multiple developers,
Okay,
builders. Yeah, he's still,
but no,
I mean, COVID-19 just sort of pushed everything out, unfortunately, for Dan.
okay.
But we've been
Thank you.
staying in close contact with him, so we should know hopefully shortly after he does.
Thank you.
Corey?
Yes, could you provide a little information what you're trying to accomplish with the Terrace Tree Program for 2021?
So that would be sort of one tier of a multiple tiered urban forestry program that we would like to do. So we've already made changes to our master development agreement for new subdivisions to require street trees. Believe we still have to make changes to chapter 18, which would kind of put that street tree requirement in place. And then the tree program would be perhaps partnering with a local nursery to provide a discount on small trees for homeowners to be able to purchase and then plant in their terrace. So in the right of way, but in front of their home. And those homeowners are responsible for the planting and maintenance and trimming of that tree. But just the ability to have, a street tree, a little bit more privacy and enjoy that tree. But we're still, I think, Mike, did we end up budgeting some in that for the 2021 budget?
We have $15,000 that we have available for the program.
Right. So I think we were imagining doing sort of a pilot program, and depending on the cost of the trees, we could negotiate with a local nursery. We would, cover a percentage of that and then advertise that to the residents. And there would be species that we know do well in Oregon and are not going to be subject to any, pests right now.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead, Jerry.
Yes, just Elise, another question on the tree program, the terrace trees.
Mm-hmm.
How will the homeowners get educated regarding I was going to say rules, but the responsibilities that the homeowner has toward those trees? In other words, the planting, the maintenance, which includes trimming,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happens if somebody doesn't trim their tree and we've got this overgrown tree?
So I think our plan was that we would still require a permit for people that want to plant trees in the terrace, but we would perhaps eliminate the fee that's associated with that. So to try to encourage people to plant the trees, and with that permit, there would be information about how to plant, where to plant, responsibilities for maintenance. But maybe Jeff, could you speak towards what happens if somebody has kind of an overgrown tree that's getting in the way of the sidewalk?
Right, and I should tell you that this is a program that has not been fully approved by the village board yet. This is something we'll be bringing before the village board first of the year time period going into spring. And this is kind of a reaction to obviously so many ash trees that have lost. This was the year where we just saw everything literally dead, and trying to encourage some terrace trees. Part of this program, Jerry and others, will involve a permit that someone will have to fill out, and that'll have rules and regulations associated with that, kind of like we do with our driveway permits or anything like that. And we are waiving the permit fee, just so we want to encourage people to do it. Part of what we envision as the plan right now would be possibly a reimbursement of 50% up to, we had $100 or $125 or something like that. You remember?
Something like that.
Yeah.
It was something like that, but basically a reimbursement of a certain amount so that the people putting in these trees do have some skin in the game as far as, you know, putting in some of their money for these trees. They understand they'll be responsible for maintenance of it. Jerry will kind of have to deal with it, kind of like what we do with other stuff. If someone's not maintaining their sidewalk or maintaining anything else, I have to follow up with them and, you know, request that they make those changes. And I've had to do that maybe 3 or 4 times a year. I just have to get on someone about their trimming up their terrace trees, and it's never been a problem really to date. Yeah.
All right. Jeff, got a couple more questions on that. Number one, how will you control what gets planted?
Okay.
Will you be telling them what they have to plant?
Right. There'll be an acceptable list of what you can plant, just like there are now. And we're working on that list. And one of the things we want to do with this program is to be able to provide them a list with an actual tree that they can match with what's out at the nursery. Unfortunately, sometimes when you go out to nurseries and you give them this Latin name for a tree and they look at you like, well, we have something that's close. You know what we've when we've met with the nurseries is they would provide a certain number of trees and everything in their stock that are acceptable for street trees. And we would update that list periodically as needed. And then those could be chosen trees for putting in the terrace. And then we'd have some ones that obviously are forbidden that, you know, cause havoc to the roads and sidewalks.
Okay. And again, when you say terrace, to define that further, that's the area between the curb and the sidewalk, right?
Correct. Curb and sidewalk. And obviously there's some that are only 2 and 3 feet wide in the village, and those would not be acceptable places for trees.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Mike, do you want me to go back to the budget?
Yes, please. I wanted to, we could turn to the page right before the planner budget. It's the breakout. You actually had it there. Just one more page down, please.
Can I ask one last question on that previous page? I don't think we need to go back there, but I did see the word culvers. You want to just talk about that for 2 seconds?
We're just one of many communities that they're looking at. There's nothing for sure.
Okay.
We know, and I don't want to use, they're looking at a number of suburban communities.
They are, okay, because I had heard that they weren't looking to expand in this area, and someone's going to see it and it's going to be on the information page, and I just wanted to clarify why it's there.
There's nothing pending, there's nothing, they're just looking at different communities for potential possible expansion. Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Sure.
It's probably trending on Facebook right now.
Yeah.
It's the $1 million question this year. I think if I had a quarter every time I was asked about culvert.
I was just looking, I think Taco Bell's on there as well. So.
No, it's not.
I'd like to see that.
Was that Jenna?
Yeah.
So I'll just take a moment so this is the sheet that Lisa and I prepare with Elise, and it's just, we're trying to show the breakout of how we pay for the planner position in the budget and how much we think Elise will be able to generate in developable hours, chargeable hours next year. And you can see that we're showing a pretty big emphasis in the Southeast Business Park. We think that is going to be a place we're going to be spending a lot of time next year, as well as just in the general fund doing things like Elise was talking about the bicycle program, for example. So again, this is our best estimate of how the time is going to be spent next.
When you, Mike, Bollig has a question. When you say billable hours, to define that further, that means there'd be a developer paying for that. Is that correct?
Or a petitioner, somebody comes in and wants to do a CSM, they're paying for Elise's time. Yep. When Elise does when,
In other
when
words, other people will be paying for her time.
that's correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Oh, I think Corey had a question there.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, wondering, if things did slow down significantly, and we didn't get that revenue, how do we handle that?
Comes out of our paychecks.
Yeah, right.
That won't cover it.
Well, some of it would be covered out of contingency. Again, that's why Lisa and I were nervous at one point of only having about $15,000 in there because of COVID. That's a great question, Corey. Because of COVID, there's so many unknowns that we just were very uncomfortable going into the year with such a little bit of contingency. So it would be contingency that would cover that, hopefully.
I will say that surprisingly, things have not slowed down at all this year.
When I talk to other administrators in Dane County, their planners are as busy as Elise. It's amazing. Yeah.
I guess I would just like to continue to have kind of a conservative approach to that so we don't run into problems.
Yep. We agree. Is there any other questions on that? If not, maybe turn to page 24 then. That is, there's a planning budget. And the next item is on the same page, which is the Economic Development Fund. That includes the Chamber of Commerce annual funding. You can see in the footnote that includes all the work that Judy does on the village's behalf, of the community's behalf on economic development. We help pay for the fireworks, and then we pay a share for the community guide. It totals $8,000. And then transfer out. There's a transfer out to funds 431. That is the TID 4 capital project fund. And so that is the end of the administrative section on the agenda.
All right, questions of anything between 13A and 13S that we haven't covered as of yet? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the administrative section agenda items 13A through 13S, please.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. So I have a motion by Peterson. I'm sorry, who seconded it?
Yes.
I don't know who that is.
Luke.
Who that is? Okay, sorry. Too many people keep talking at once and I can't tell who's talking. All right, thank you, Stitch, Mr. Stitch. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we are on deck for a 10-minute break. Does that still sound okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. All right, so everybody want to come back to the meeting? Board members, turn on your video again. We will continue. Let's see here. Who have I got? It's me and Corey so far.
I think Luke is
Hey,
on.
Corey, how's it
too.
going? What's that?
I think
Oh,
Luke-
I didn't hear it there.
Oh, no,
All
Luke
right.
isn't on. No.
Oh, here comes Jerry. All right, here we go. Okay, so we will continue on with item 15. This is the park budget. All right, who gets to go through park budget?
I can do it if the board wants to. Yeah. So page 23 is the parks budget. And I know this has been mentioned more than a few times that we're carrying the money over for the Learner Park Master Plan. And this is also where we are budgeting for wood chips next year. Any questions on that? If not, then if you want to go to your special fund tab and page 68 and 69, this is the park fund. And as we note on the agenda, this can only be used for the purchase of parkland. This is when we get money from developers. And this money is in a separate fund that we can only use for purchase of park. Any questions on that? And on page 80 and 81 is a playing fields development. It takes a little bit of time to get there. And this one shows us the redevelopment of JC Park West in 21, as well as the conceptual planning for the West Side Park. One of the things that we noticed when Lisa and I were proofing the budget a little bit this afternoon, and we have to show what's called a continuing appropriation in here, basically bringing the money that's already been allocated for JC Park West into the 21 budget. So we will do that for the final budget, because we need to have all the money in here to do the $4 million project. So, any questions on that? Okay.
All right, so any questions on items 15A through 15C right now? If not, I would entertain a motion. Oh, yes, go ahead, Corey.
So for the park impact fee improvements, the 2020 budget was 100,000 and our projected is 210. I guess what's going on there? And then, we're only, in 2021 budgeting just under 60,000. I guess, could you give a little detail on that?
Sure. Well, the projection, current year actuals is over $200,000. So, I mean, we just, as you add apartment projects, for example, they generate a lot of park impact fees. And again, we're being conservative, just like we went down $10,000 on building permits. We're just being conservative on these fees. If Lakestone happens and everything happens, then this number is way too conservative. But we decided to be conservative, and we'll just increase the budget next year if we have to.
Okay, thank you.
Additional questions? All right, if not, I would entertain a motion then to approve items 15A through 15C in the park budget.
Peterson will make the motion.
All right, so a motion by Peterson, and who would like to second?
Horton will second.
Thank you. Second by Horton. Last chance for questions right now. All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. Now on to the exciting Public Works General Fund. We have items A through J, and Jeff, take it away.
Sure. So let's first talk about kind of where we were and what we did and what we're doing. I'll cover some goals and accomplishments from this last year. Obviously, just been definitely a different year staffing, because one of the things, even through COVID and shutdowns, we still have to maintain our services, our water, our sewer. We were not given any relief on any kind of testing or any kind of requirements that we had to meet for treatment. So I really do want to applaud my staff for doing a fantastic job. And they continue to amaze me every day, and they cover a lot of bases and continue to do that and do it well. And so it's exciting to be able to lead that. Kind of the big highlights from this last year. Obviously, we're talking about the Highlands of Netherwood Park. We've hit that a little bit, and I think when you have a chance to go out there, hopefully you will gain some excitement into hopefully not only what we have out there now, but what we possibly can have out at JC Park on the West Side Park in the future, as we do major improvements and what I call professional upgrades to those. So that's exciting to be able to see that come together. We're continuing to work with the multi-jurisdictional group that is working on Lake Barney. I envision in November you'll have, I'll bring before you kind of a preliminary report on Lake Barney that we can talk about. And I can kind of share some of the results with that, and we'll be then seeing what type of project comes out of that and how feasible that type of project will be. We're continuing to work on reestablishing the Badfish Drainage District, the Oregon addition to the Badfish Drainage District, which is critical again in getting us being able to get water through Lerner Park into Badfish Creek from the Cusick Parkway and the Lake Barney area. We anticipate a large project in the Cusick Netherwood area that's designed, and it actually bid opens on Thursday. I don't know if anyone has been through the Janesville Street, Park Street intersection. We have flashing lights. Now they're not all up, but they are there and they're flashing. That's a huge step. Starting to look nice. And I think hopefully today's rain will start to help bring in some of that landscape repair and everything. But that project's just wrapping up, and that's real exciting to be able to see because that's kind of been a safety concern for many residents. And that's a very important step for that area. And I've actually heard from two of the neighbors over there, or two of the business owners over there that said, I think the quote was, "The hood looks good." And I like to hear that from them. This last year, we spent nearly $900,000 invested in what just roadway maintenance. That's mill and overlay, that's pulverize and repave, chip sealing, and seal coating and crack filling. That's a very nice investment. I've actually heard from some people, even some people who are, shall I say, more apt to complain. And they actually complimented the village this year to say that it's nice to see the roadways being addressed. Now, we've been addressing roadways for a while, but I think we're starting to, people are starting to recognize that. And we do appreciate that. That could not happen without the investment that you guys prove and allow us to do. So that's very, very important. Lincoln Road. Lincoln Road will be striped tomorrow, and that should be the final item on Lincoln Road, other than some very, very minor stuff, but it will be scheduled to be open tomorrow afternoon. If you skirted around the signs, shame on you, but it is very nice out there, and you'll see that as well. And it also, the town, I think it's been a good working effort with the town this last year to be able to see that all come together. We did renegotiate a lease this last year with US Cellular for the water tower, so that brings in about $24,000 annually for the water utility, which is great. We finished the Vector dump station, which you just approved earlier today, the final change order and the substantial completion. We're starting the blower upgrade project, which is huge. We wrapped up the facilities plan. Would you like me to go over every detail on the facilities plan again? Anybody?
I vote no.
No, I don't either. Yeah. This was our first season ever of having a full-time LTE person up at the cemetery. And Patrick Piper did a very nice job and continues to do a very nice job. Fantastic compliments we got from how nice the cemetery looks this year. So we hope to continue that program. We continue on with Yahara Winds, which is our phosphorus reduction program. I think if anyone has been over near Thompson Park, my guys did an outstanding job in resurrecting that park and taking kind of a big weedy area and turning it into a nice forested grassed mowed area. And that was a huge success, I think, for us this last year. Another big milestone is a closeout of the permits for TDS. TDS took an enormous burden on, especially my water supply folks, who had to go out and do utility locates, hundreds and thousands of literally thousands of utility locates for the TDS overbuild. That's wrapped up and very minor now, other than just some service installations. But so we're happy to see that done and kind of moving on. Just a lot of other development projects and some equipment you've probably seen. And then as we look forward to coming up in the next couple of years, or in this next year, you know, we envision the retirement of 2, possibly 3 individuals from Public Works. And those will be positions that we'll continue to fill. I'll be talking a little bit about kind of my plan here in just a little bit, but we'll actually be bidding and constructing the North Main Street project. That's a joint project we'll be doing with the county, and that's going to be from Grove Street all the way to McDonald's. And actually, the county will probably continue to pave north towards the roundabouts. There's a section in there that they're going to redo as well, but that won't be part of our project. We'll be replacing water main in those locations. We'll start the preliminary design for phase 1 through 3 of the wastewater treatment plant. We hope to start drilling well number 6. We have the blower upgrade project. We continued I&I elimination, and then procurement of our equipment, and then start to bring on the cellular connected tablets, which we actually just had at our last board meeting. You know, all of this, we kind of take this all knowing that what we're heading into, we don't know what we're heading into. We're going to continue to operate hopefully at 100% staff. We've been very blessed not to have any sickness, you know, from COVID in our staff, and I think village-wide. And I think that's a very good testimony to hopefully all of our staff taking really good precautions. And I just end it by saying that, you know, we have a great staff, and it's a joy to work with everybody, both at Village Hall as well as my staff down at the Public Works Department. So that being said, I'm going to go into, well, it is just past page 15 of the budget, but it was the discussion on Public Works organization, structure, and plan for 2021. And if you can go in, at least if you go to the org chart right now, that's the Public Works chart of September 10th. So you can see here, this is kind of a general organization chart, and right now it's myself, or below administrators, myself. I have an assistant director of Public Works who is Gary Dish, and Gary has been with the village for over 40 years. Gary has indicated he will be retiring in this next year, and this is a time where as we grow, honestly, I need some help in being able to handle and manage some of these areas. So I kind of looked at other communities, and at least if you can go to the next sheet, what I'm envisioning doing is actually creating what we call an assistant director of Public Works and village engineer. This would be more of a technical position than what is in Gary's position right now. More technical and engineering background, be able to help out with the design and management of projects and tasks. And then talk about bringing superintendents in on how to manage staff. Notably, street superintendent, which would then be more of a person that would be halfway between where Gary's position is now and my crew staff. But that person would be responsible for basically the day-to-day operation of the crews for the Public Works crew, parks, mechanics, and cemetery LTE. And then eventually a utility superintendent. They could be, right now I'm budgeting them as internal hires, although it'll just depend on, I'll have to come back talk with you about some of those options at a later date. But basically a utility superintendent that would oversee the wastewater, water, and the wastewater and water, and the distribution systems and everything like that. You can kind of see I have an interim plan without a utility superintendent, where I would probably have that person, the assistant director and village engineer, kind of take on that role to be able to handle some of that. So those are kind of, as with any plan, that's the plan. Ideally what I'm looking for is, as we continue to grow as a village and as we continue to grow staff, I want to be able to bring up staff that have true leadership skills and are respected by the crews. But then also I want to be able to diversify some of the things that quite honestly get stuck on my desk just because of a lack of time and resources to be able to handle them. So that's kind of plan going forward. I mean, it hasn't changed in a very long time period. So this is kind of our first baby step in making that direction. Any questions on goals and objectives and organizational structure plan for 21?
Yeah, go ahead, Jerry. Hey, Jerry, you're muted.
So I'm not muted anymore. Sorry. I think Elise is doing that just to mess with me.
I hear you eating earlier, Jerry.
Pardon?
I was hearing you eating dinner earlier, so I'm using my powers.
You have all the power right now. So, on these positions now, is your plan to feather these in over multi-years? Or, I mean, because, you know, we have economic downturns and we have economic upturns and
Right.
I mean, you weren't planning on dropping this in all at once, were you?
Believe it or not, yes. And this is accomplished in a couple ways. You know, with the retirement of 3 individuals who are at the top of their pay scales. You know, I've worked it out, and I've actually run these numbers by Mike and Lisa, and what I can show is that we had about a 3% increase to be able to. Wasn't that right, Lisa? Okay.
Yep.
About a 3% increase across the public works salaries, not increase in wages, but just overall cost of that and benefits. By implementing this, and part of this is going to be offset a little bit. Like if I have a retirement in January, I probably will not have that filled until February or March. And the way time flies around here, that's very realistic. And so there's some cost savings with that, Jerry, and then there's also some cost savings with the fact of bringing somebody in who is not at the top of the pay scale. And so I've kind of broken it out, kind of when I anticipate the retirements to occur, what I anticipate the salary range for, say, the superintendents would have to be, or the village engineer and assistant director. And I've been very conservatively strong on those, so I don't believe it's a non-realistic type of budget approach for it.
Okay. I don't know how the other board members feel, but I think I'm not saying this is a bad plan. I'm saying this is a good plan, but I think how we implement it is going to determine everything. You know, I don't want to spike the tax rate.
Yeah.
Is what I'm concerned about. I think when we start adding these positions, it'd be helpful if you'd work with Lisa and come up with a 2 or 3 year analysis of cost. And the reason I say that is because, you know, the first year isn't always a good reflection of what's going to happen in subsequent years, because you have people at the top retiring, starting people at the bottom, and there are many variables, I guess, whenever you start replacing staff. So if the numbers work, super. But what I don't see here is, I don't see any one of these positions handling accoutrements. Which one?
I still handle 100% of all accoutrements.
Okay.
And actually, appurtenances.
Appurtenances.
Accoutrements are completely different.
Is that Lisa's department now? Did you give those to her?
Yeah.
But I mean, Lisa, and you've seen what I've prepared for that, and I think, you know, what we've tried to show is what we feel is a very realistic picture, and not a picture that puts our new hires at the bottom, you know, that we've got to come in right away with something.
No, I mean, and I'm realistic about this. I know you can't add staff without adding dollars to the budget. Mm-hmm. So it's.
Yeah, and I'm not, just so you understand, a lot of it is not necessarily adding staff.
As I mentioned that, yeah.
You know, the street superintendent, I anticipate as an internal hire. Okay, so that will be an adjustment of responsibilities for someone and an adjustment in pay, but it's not going to be adding a whole new staff member. That's where, the utility superintendent, if I can't fill that internally, then that's when I would put that on hold. So when we can, from a budget perspective, be able to possibly add that staff member.
Very good. Yeah. Good plan, Jeff.
Okay.
I think we have a question from Corey.
Jeff, was your 3%, was that factoring in the delay in hires, or was that just strictly year to year?
That did not factor in the delay in hires, I don't believe, Lisa. She's muted.
Oh, yeah, Lisa, sorry.
Yeah, I don't believe, no, I mean, I will tell you that my original, what I provided Lisa and Mike did not factor in a delay. So it'll probably be even a little bit less. And of course it completely depends on hiring markets and that type of thing but I'm confident that where we're at with what would be a starting salary would be representative of say what other street superintendents or utility superintendents would be at.
Oh, I guess when we do add these positions, I want to make sure that we're looking at it, on a year-long basis, so we're not creating a structural deficit for a later year. So that's one comment that I have. I guess the other comment that I have is, being a growing village, I do see us needing to add staff, especially when we look at, adding, new miles of streets and water mains and sewers, and another big one too, and I don't know how much it's been looked at, but the jurisdictional transfers from the county are actually a huge burden for maintaining county roads that we didn't have to do before. So, this structure that you've set up with this new org chart, it adds kind of administrative level supervisors, and I think we probably need as much kind of more the maintenance crews and public works, maintenance staff people as much as we need kind of the superintendent level. I guess, are you handling that by having those superintendents be kind of more of a kind of a worker supervisor at the same time?
Correct. Yep. That's in my definition. They will still be operators and out there doing the work, but they're also going to have a certain percentage of time that they're going to have for office time for tracking bills, vouchers, responding to vendors, all that type of stuff.
So the utility one you mentioned was kind of a new promotion of probably one of the existing staff without adding another body. Is
the street is that way?
Okay, so both of those positions are that way.
That's the way, like I said, the street superintendent, I firmly believe we will do that as an internal hire because I feel that we have, an individual or two that are very willing and capable and ready for that kind of position. Utility superintendent, I don't know. I still need to, it really would be taking a look and talking to the staff a little more. When I've talked to the staff, I've not necessarily found that person yet.
Okay. So I like adding, places for people to grow into. I guess my question would be is when do you think we're going to need to add bodies? Because ultimately this isn't adding a lot of capacity. It's more kind of creating a supervisory and a promotional growth opportunity, I guess. When do you think we have to add additional bodies?
Well, one of the things that we have not done this year is we did have a resignation last, I think that was June or July. I've held off filling that, and we're going to be filling that position again with a public works, to be a public works crew person. That'll come back again in, I think, March. Is that right? I think, Lisa?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
that'll be March.
we're looking to fill that position as a 4-1.
Yeah, so we'll be doing the hiring for that in March, and that'll get us back up to what I call full staff. And then we will have our LTEs. Now, one of the cost saving measures that we did make to help get our budget, the overall budget down below, or because we were at that $122,000 overage, was I did, I think, take 2 LTEs, one long-term LTE and one short-term LTE out of the plan for 2021.
Just one long-term.
Just one long-term?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thought I had taken another one, but so.
one of the things I should have mentioned during the overview was that because we were obviously over the property tax cap, and for us to at some point add a brand new position to the budget, we're going to have to build capacity back up again in the budget to do that. And so at this point, what Jeff is proposing is actually included in the budget, and we're still under the cap. So for us to add a brand new public works position, that will take us some time to, for example, we would need a good year or two of net new construction to be able to do something like that.
I'll have to dig back. I mean, you know, we added the one public work position in 2 years ago. I believe we had another one scheduled, Mike, in about another year and a half or year to 2 years. So we're on that schedule to add staff. I'm with you totally, Corey. I mean, we're adding a very significant amount of roadways. And the thing is, the good thing is when we add these roadways, the county highways, or these new subdivision roads, they are brand new. So it doesn't, our maintenance on those really is plowing, you know, from the standpoint. We're not going to be hopefully potholing and doing that kind of stuff anytime, pothole filling anytime soon. But it does give us a few years to be able to catch up to those roads as they get older. But you're exactly right. You know, I'll come back later and, you know, we'll talk later when we go through the Whistler or the annual Whistler filing and, you know, talk about how many miles of roads we're adding just this year. And that's in Bergamot, the Highlands and Netherwood subdivision, and then Autumn Ridge.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we?
I was going to say one last thing about this, Jeff, is that every time somebody retires, you have to come to the board to get permission to do the recruitment. So the board's going to see this process or plan numerous times in 21.
I have to come back to the board every time.
Mm-hmm.
Here,
Right.
just a sec. I got a call I got to make. Hang on. Yeah, put it on hold. Don't come in tomorrow. All right. Thanks.
Nice.
Hey,
thank you.
All part of municipal transparency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No. Okay. Page
Go on.
15A we already talked about, and 16 public works. You know, that's you know, just in public works and administration is salary. Mike talks about how, you know, my salary is definitely split between several of the different areas, including TIF 4 and 5, Southeast Business Park. And one of the things we do have with retirements, we have payouts of accrued vacation. And so that's one of the things that was another reason that we really can't be looking at additional staff this year is, you know, we do, you know, these individuals, they do rack up the vacation and they carry it over, and you know, we have to pay that out. So we have engineering on page 16, pretty straightforward. Just that kind of covers just general engineering. We have general engineering that pops up throughout the year. Those are things that we really have to hire Rupert Milkey for to be able to do those. We still have GIS mapping in there. We want to be able to continue to work with Town and Country, and they help maintain our GIS mapping software up to date and add additional points and layers that we need and everything like that. Public Works machinery repair is, you know, a slight increase, but I will say this is, it just seems to me, I mean, if you ever have a chance, and if you haven't had a chance, I would love to take you on a tour of the Public Works shop. That's anybody, even listening, to be able to get an idea of just the sheer amount of equipment that we have to operate, maintain, and repair, and put new blades on and new brushes on and all that type of stuff. So Gary does a great job, and Terry does a great job in maintaining those, but it still is a lot of work for machinery repair. Public Works garage is up a little bit, but what we noticed is obviously with the new facility, the new public work garage was the first full year this last year of that, and add additional lighting and everything with that. Let's see, what else do we have? Anything questions with public works garage? Snow and ice control. Snow and ice control is always a guess every year, but as you can see, the really main item there is always going to be the salt and sand. We have, this is something that again, if it comes down to a time where I can have a little more help on the administrative side, I really want to look at someday how we can affect and change the amount of salt and the methods of what we use on our roads. A couple of things in this, I talk about this every year, but we as a culture and as a village have gotten used to clean, dry roads. Okay, and in Wisconsin winters, that means you put down a lot of salt. And you can see in the budget here includes 790 tons. So, and for those out there, the 2,000 pounds per ton, that's a lot of salt. But if we were to not put salt on the roads, we would definitely get a ton of complaints, probably 790 tons of complaints from residents. So, there's other things that we can be looking at. One of the things I want to eventually look into is a possible brine situation. There's other ways that we can pre-treat roadways, but there can be other chemicals that you can mix with it. But one of the things is you have to think of 790 tons, or I think it was 760 tons this last year, has to go somewhere. So it goes into our storm drains, it goes into our soils, it goes into our creeks and everything like that. So either we as a community change our perspective on how we do things, or we change the way we're doing it. But for the time being, that's where we are. We continue to salt our roadways, and our residents kind of have that expectation of clean and clear roads year round. Any question on snow and ice control?
Corey has a question.
Corey.
So I would be glad to work with you on the salt reduction, I guess, first of all. I'm curious about the salt and sand budget, because we have budgeted 65,000, and then you're showing 64,464 in salt purchase, which is a contracted amount. So do we have enough in that line item to cover the sand that you need to purchase?
We almost never purchase sand.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all 100% salt. That's just the purchase salt that we have. The only time we ever use sand is when we go over, and I try not to. And we've been good at stringing out our salt and keeping track of it.
Okay, thank you.
The sand, sand you then have to go around and clean up out of your system and everything like that.
So, yep, Amanda has a question.
Yeah, more of a comment. You've mentioned this before with the salt and trying to reduce our usage of it, which I support wholeheartedly. I think that's important. But I suggest that as a board, we make a policy, or not a policy, but a plan to start to sway public opinion on this well in advance of actually implementing it, so you don't get 790 tons of complaints.
Mm-hmm.
So, if we could talk about this at a future meeting, but, we need to have like a PR plan to go with this. That was it.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I agree. That and mowing, right? We're still all budgeted for mowing this next year too, so we're good on there. Traffic signals. Page 18, we contract services with City of Madison to help maintain our signals. That will eventually, we'll continue with the City of Madison to be able to take care of our signals. It's just after a while, we won't have Dane and the reimbursements from Dane County, obviously, as we take that over in 2022. With that, we'll have to change in our next year's budget. Street lighting. Basically, street lighting, as you remember last year, the Alliant Energy went through and did an update on all the street lighting, and we had some major changes last year, but things are pretty much smoothed out. I think, I will say this is Alliant Energy does a phenomenal job in taking care of the village and our street lighting. They are extremely responsive. I almost always, if I have a request for a street light out, they are there the next day. So I want to give a lot of kudos to them and their team for being able to do that. And I think we're getting a very good service from them. Storm sewer, pretty straightforward. Actually, one of the nice things of having the Vector truck is when we will take time to be able to start cleaning out a lot of our storm sewers, which we have a lot of storm sewer inlets that we're finding around the village that have not been cleaned out in a very long time. And the Vector portion, the vacuum portion of that truck and the hydro excavation has been an excellent tool to be able to do that. Trees, brush, and leaves. I have $20,000 this next year for brush pile grinding and hauling. This continues to be a very big expense. We saw an enormous amount of brush this year on our pile. And that I attribute that all to COVID, or not all, but a lot to COVID and people just being home and taking, all of a sudden looking out their backyard and saying, I don't have anything to do today. I'm just going to go trim my tree. And so we got a lot of stuff coming into there, and our expenses are going up on the brush grinding. I wish there was another good way about it, but there isn't a community around that doesn't have trying to get rid of wood chips and that kind of stuff. I mean, Corey, I think I was in back of Fitchburg one day, and they've kind of got the pile behind the shed that just keeps getting bigger and bigger, I think, right? So it's a challenge. We don't have that ability just to keep piling it higher and higher. So our contract is to pay to haul it away. So unless it used to be where a rogue lightning bolt would strike it every once in a while, but that doesn't happen anymore ever since you have a new public works director. So either I'm good luck or whatever.
I could make it happen, Jeff.
Is the chief on? Is the fire chief on? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Cemetery, like I talked about, continue hiring a limited term employee. I can't say enough that that's just neat to see that working out up there. But other than that, it's a privilege. I do thank the board for their continued support of all of our projects. We'll go into capital projects later and stuff like that. But I just wanted to let you know that my staff, I think they know and appreciate that the board supports them and supports their efforts.
Thank you, Jeff. All right.
You're welcome.
Questions or comments for our Director of Public Works? Yes, Corey.
Sorry, one final thing here. I think there's a decent chance that with COVID and with the economy, I think that there might be opportunities for grant or stimulus funding for roadway and infrastructure projects. And I'm just wondering, should we be budgeting for, having more of a shovel-ready project for, taking advantage of that if it does come along?
Yeah, I agree completely. In fact, every once in a while, I'll get something come across my desk. I'll look at it, and if it seems positive, I forward it on to our engineers to, who are working on a project. One project I'm thinking that might be a really good possibility could be the Janesville Park intersection, Janesville Perry Parkway intersection upgrade. That one should be shovel ready by, say, first of the year. So yeah, I think that would be a very good opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or comments? Yes, Amanda.
So I'm on the Public Works Committee, and we haven't met lately, but I just wanted to commend Jeff, say this is great, and I like the way you have your long and short-term planning laid out. I think you're a real asset to our village, and this looks good. I appreciate your organizational skills and follow through.
Thanks.
You're here. I agree.
It's been the busiest year yet. But
Jeff, and you're young. I mean, just think what the next 25 years of your career are going to be here in Oregon.
I'm on board.
Think of all the buildings that you'll build before you get approval. It's gonna be great.
Actually, it is fun. I mean, and I will say this, people, my wife says, you're really excited about this park. And I said, well, one of the things, so much of the stuff that we do at Public Works, people don't really get excited about. I mean, a new sewer line, how do you get excited about that?
Well, people don't see it.
Exactly. And so the park thing has been a very neat thing because you can be out there and you can just envision the kids having a good time and the families having a safe time and everything. And but yeah, it's fun when you do see it, when you see improvements. You drive through an intersection, and my family's tired of me talking about all of them, but that's all right.
All right, so there's no further questions right now. I would entertain a motion to approve items 16A through 16J.
I'll make that motion, Jeannie.
Thank you. So we have a motion by Horton and a second by Peterson. Any final discussion on these? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you, Jeff. Going on to item 17. This is the exciting special funds section of the agenda, which goes into the double letters. My favorite. So Mike, I'm assuming this is you.
Sure, I can do this. Yep.
All right.
So page 26, the first page after special funds. Let's get to that. Is the sick leave fund, and we explained that we've been generating a fund balance with anticipation of 2 retirements next year, and this fund is only available to employees who have been a supervisor for at least 20 years with the village and were employed by the village prior to January 2006. So I think there's only like about 6 of us that are eligible for that. So. Page 34 is the Hermson Property Fund. This is just an attempt on our part to generate, at some point when the Hermson Park becomes a village park, that we're going to have a maintenance fund, a fund balance developed to help maintain the park in the future. So every time there's a lot that's sold in Highlands, so another would we get a $155 payment for that. So page 35 is the CDA fund. I think at some point, the village should have a discussion whether or not we want to keep this around. I mention it every year, and we sort of forget to think about it. But at some point, we should talk about whether or not we should dissolve the CDA and get rid of the fund. Page 37 is preserve the water tower, and the main thing here is the village budgeted money for our share of the plaque that the society is going to put up for the red maple tree by the water tower and the pump house. The board approved that back in June of this year. Page 38 is the Herman Cemetery Trust Fund, and we are trying to spend the money that we got permission from the family to spend this money, and I know the Public Works Department is trying to do that. So eventually, this fund will go away. And page 41 and 42 is the refuse and recycling. And the main thing here is that we actually are showing the new contract with Pelletieri that may come to the board either next week, Monday, or maybe the first meeting in November. We anticipate that contract taking effect as of 1/1/21. And this is where we would have recycling pickup every week in the village.
And I think Mike, just a good point there is those fees are not going up under a new contract.
Well, a little bit they are.
Pennies, but not.
Yeah. I mean, they're going from it's going from $11.95 to $12.20, so it's
yeah,
a little bit.
True.
Yeah. The root tax fund, we sort of talked about a little about this during the overview, and we're showing revenue of $35,000 next year, and we split that with the Tourism Commission, as we mentioned. And then we show the transfer out to the general fund and to the sick leave fund, as mentioned before, from this fund. Page 46 is the TIF 2 Special Revenue Fund. that was closed in 2018. Page 47 and 48 is the TIF 3 Special Revenue Fund, and noted on the agenda. 21 will be the 5th year of debt service for the Girlmore loan. That's a building on North Main Street, and that loan will be paid off in 2026. Pages 49, 50, and 51 is the TIF 4 Special Revenue Fund. Headquarters began, we provided a loan to, or TIF loan to Jamie back in 2017, and 21 is the last year for this payment. You see in this budget, in this fund, the sleep-ins, hotels, TIP incentive payment is included in the budget. That's actually on page 50 in the middle of the page, the $89,000 payment. Yeah, thanks, Luis. See, the next item is TIP 5. This is on pages 52, 53, 54, and 55. Ticey's TIF grant is in this fund, and as Jeff was talking about, this is the reconstruction of North Main Street with Dane County. We decided rather than running this through the street improvement fund, we're going to run this through TID 5 because it's an eligible project for reimbursement at some point through the TIF. Page 56 is the workforce housing. This is the fund that the village created when we closed TIF 2. And we're showing the payment to Genesis Housing that was made in 2020. This is a TID 3 debt service. This is for the improvements that we did back in the late 2000s downtown, and we show a $160,000 levy to help cover the debt service payments in this fund. And this is what I mentioned before during the overview, that this is where the payment of not having to make to Gary Gorman anymore is helping to help hold the levy down for this debt service. Page 59 and 56 is the TIF 2 debt service fund. This is a Brown Road that was paid off in 2020. And pages 61 and 62 is a general debt service fund. Debt service is increasing about $160,000, which equates to a levy increase of about $18,000. And here again, we're showing this is going to be the last year on page 61. This is the last year that we can be using fire district impact fees for the loan to help build the building. Page 63 and 64 is the TIF 4 debt service fund. This budget includes debt service for the purchase of the former motel property. We're paying that loan off. And for the Park Street and Janesville Street intersection projects that is just being completed. TID 5 debt service on pages 65 and 66. This is debt service for the facade grant and Jefferson Street parking lot improvements. And as Elise mentioned during her overview, at this point, we're not really doing the wayfinding sign project. I think we're going to do that after, we're going to make that a post-COVID-19 project at some point. Page 67, we changed the name from Developer Stormwater Fund to Stormwater Fund. We decided we needed to have a better fund to be running large stormwater projects, and we decided to show the Lerner Park and Cusick Parkway and Otherwood project in this fund, and this, as well as the $2,000 annual inspection we make to the Drainage District Board is in this fund as well. And pages 70 and 71 and 72, this is the Street Improvement Fund. And I know we've had a lot of discussion already about the new Village Street program, and obviously that's going to have to be coming to the board at some point for review and consideration. And Jeff, did you want to mention anything regarding this fund?
Yeah, just quickly, just so everyone understands, we're actually borrowing ahead on our roadway maintenance. our capital improvement plan calls for about $320,000 annually in roadway maintenance. But in order for us to reduce our burden on borrowing in 2022, we're kind of trying to move some stuff into borrowing for 2021. Correct, Mike?
That's right. We're trying to keep our annual borrowing under $10 million. So that's one of the main reasons why we're doing it. Yep.
So next year we could have three things happen. We would either decide to do a $320,000 plan or a program for roadway maintenance, or we could, if we felt prices were good, do a $640,000 and then not do one in 2022. Or we could not do one next year and put all $640,000 in 2022. So those kind of things, and we're evaluating that with our engineers. I'm having them work through to develop a plan that helps rate and rank our roads a little better for maintenance plans and everything. So we'll be developing that plan. Then just next year's big projects, honestly, for the public is going to be what we call County Highway North, and that's a complete reconstruction of the roadway and about 25% of the curb and aprons from Grove Street all the way to McDonald's, and that will cause a significant disruption, just like any roadway project will. But that'll be important that gets done, as well as the intersection at Perry and Janesville Street.
And I was going to mention, Jeff, that also next year, because we're going to be doing the project on Janesville Street with the county in 22, we're going to be doing engineering work for that project as well next year.
Correct. Right. Correct. And then the only other thing is we have a small project in there. You see Bergamot CC crossing. That was something that, I don't know if you remember, in 2021, sorry, what is this year, 2020, the people came to the village board asking that we look at creating sidewalk ramps and a crosswalk at Bergamot Boulevard there as it crosses CC. And so we told, at the time, the board approved that and directed us to put it into next year's budget. So that's what we did.
And then I guess the last thing would be, is the board may remember that or recall that we borrowed $50,000 to do some intersection studies over the next 3 years, and we're showing on the bottom of page 70 $15,000 for an intersection. And each year Jeff will come forward to the board and say, you know, he thinks we should be doing this intersection, and obviously have to get the board's approval before we go out to do the engineering study, right, Jeff?
Oh yeah, all of these will require us board approval to go out and.
Right.
The only thing I can do without board approval is sell buildings.
Exactly. So any questions on the street improvement fund? Okay. Then page 73 is the cemetery land purchase. We really have not put any money in that for a long time. That's just sitting there right now, collecting some interest. So for the potential expansion of the cemetery in the future. Then pages 74, 75, and up to 77 is the office equipment, village hall building, public works and parks equipment, and fund 414. This is our main capital improvement fund. And we sort of went through a little bit of this with the police chief about her items. Maybe Jeff, you want to talk about, I guess we did sort of mention on page 75, the replacement of your truck. And
Jerry jumped the gun on that one, but I'll give him forgiveness on that. Yeah, we have flatbed truck, and that's replacing. Those are our workhorse vehicles. This just shows the body, but the quote we have includes the setup for the flatbed and the lift gate or the tailgate on it and everything. We use these just for hauling everything, and you'll see them out every day. They get a lot of use and they get beat up, and so that's replacing that. And then with the wood chipper, this is a tractor, a tow behind wood chipper that we use with a box truck. Very expensive machine, but you can see we're getting $15,000 on our trade of our older piece of equipment. And that one, I believe, was that a 90 or 2005, I think, what that was.
The
wood chipper.
The wood chipper, yep.
Yep. And the newer ones are obviously a little safer too. And it's good.
Yeah. do want to mention one thing, that when Lisa and I were reviewing the budget this afternoon, that on page 75, we did forget to budget $35,000 for a new server for the village computer system that we do every 5 years. We had met with Computer Magic, and we will obviously be putting that into the proposed budget when you see it next time. And then on page 76, I had mentioned about during the overview about resurfacing the tennis courts. The courts need resurfacing, so we're showing that at $25,000. Jeff and I have had some discussions about, what we're going to do with the tennis courts at some point, potentially rebuilding them, relocating them, so forth. But at this point, by doing this resurfacing, this gives us another 5 years before we have to really do maybe something significant with the courts. So, any questions on any of that? Okay. Then the pages 78 and 79 is the bike trail. We sort of talked about that already. And this fund also includes the $173,000 grant we received from Dane County, which we need to spend by 2023. So hopefully the trail's done by then, Jeff. Rebuilt by then.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then on pages 83, 84, and 85 is the Southeast Business Park Fund. And I'm just going to read the note on the agenda. In 2020, Village borrowed $75,000 for developing the east side of Highway 14. And staff is proposing to borrow another $50,000 in 21. And sort of at least mention this, that we're going to be coming forward in late 2020, early 21 with an update regarding the business park. The Sweeney family is doing a wetland study, and we hope, once we get that, we'll be able to do a better mapping out there of what's developable property and so forth. And so the board could be very busy with working with at least and Jeff on that park next year. So. And then the DNR grant, Jerry, you should be happy about this. You may remember the auditors recommended that we write this off.
Yes, so good news.
Yep, so that's what we did. And the board approved that back on through resolution 2025 back in July. So it's been done.
Fantastic, good job. It only took what, 15 years?
13.
13, okay.
Pages 87, 88, 89. This is the TIF for capital projects. And this again would be the Janesville Perry Parker intersection project down on southeast corner of the village. And then page 90 is the Civic Campus Plan project. And we're proposing to borrow $25,000 to begin conceptual planning for the new village hall. And then the last one is, I think it's maybe the last page of the budget, page 107 is the cemetery care fund, page 107. So that is it for special funds.
That was a lot.
I know, I was kind of dry mouth there for a second.
All right, comments, questions for Mike on any of those items? Yes, Corey Horton.
On the TIF special funds, on several of those, there's salaries included in there. How are those calculated, both for what we're budgeting and what we actually budget the TIF funds?
Well, that sort of goes a little bit back to the sheet we showed for Elise's time. I guess we've been adjusting that the last couple of years, and Jeff and my time is also allocated to that. We sort of look into the future and see if we're going to be spending more time in which TIF, and we do our best estimate for the upcoming year, Corey.
And then the actual amount that gets billed, is that tracked and billed to them, or is that just an estimate as well?
When we do our timesheets, we have to show if we spend time in a particular TIF, we have to show that, and that gets charged to that TIF.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Additional comments or questions on any of those items? All right, then I would entertain a motion that we approve special fund items 17A through 17AA.
I'll go move that.
Thank you. So a motion by Bollig, who would like to second. Jacobson. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Motion carries. All right, so I think that's it for our first budget meeting.
Yep.
Thank you to staff for the enormous amount of work that all of this information takes to present to us in 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we appreciate it. So then our next meeting is a week from tonight, right?
Yes. It's going to be a meeting of a regular board meeting mixed in with a budget meeting. So should be interesting.
Yes, Amanda.
So like as usual, we're going to be getting both replacement budget sheets for our binder and like new ones that pertain to the meeting.
I don't know. I think I need to talk to Lisa, because when we've done that in the past, it's been very confusing. So we may maybe just put it up on the screen, to be very honest with you. So I need to talk to Lisa about it. It's funny, I just wrote a note about that. So this seems to be working pretty well by having at least to sort of go through this on screen. So you may just do that.
Yeah, Mike, and if it ends up being something super complicated that you need to send out, you can always just send it via email to us, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so that you could print it and have a paper copy, or at least you could look at it before the meeting.
Yeah, I like to have kind of a more finalized paper copy that I can go to for reference once it's all said and done too. So.
Well, we can always give you, if you want a final budget in November, we're happy to print you a final copy if you wanted to.
That would be cool. Yeah, I think I would like one.
But if you wanna, we'd be happy to print you paper copies for the next meeting as well too. So.
Yeah, I think that might be good. I don't know. I mean, if we're gonna amend as we go along, I take the amendments and I can stick them in.
Yeah, I mean, what we do is we always show the board. Like the next meeting on the agenda will be any changes we've made since we passed out the budget. We'll be going through the changes that we think we should make before then the board adopts the preliminary budget, and then even between October 19th and November 16th, there'll be additional changes, and at that budget hearing, we have to legally tell the board any changes before the board adopts the final budget. So it actually goes through, and then, and sometimes it gets a little confusing about handing out all these different sheets, but we're happy to do that if people want to see them. So, and again, if you want a hard copy of the budget at the end too, we're happy to do that as well.
Yeah, just keep Mike posted if you want paper copies. I'd say.
Yeah. Why don't I do that? I'll let you know. I don't want you to print it unnecessarily. Let's see how it goes, and if I'd like one at the end, I'll let you know.
Sure, be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And then the budget's always put online too, so it's always on our website.
That's
Once the final budget's done, it'll be on the website.
True. Thank you.
All right, then I would take a motion to adjourn for this evening.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, so a motion by Bollig, second by Peterson. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thank you everyone for all of your work. See you next week.
You.